experience, which had all types of vendors in these very seats that we're in right now. We're super excited about those youth and what they did, and in that, we want to go into our mission statement. Our mission statement is to enrich and enshrine the boxing legends that have graced us here in Atlantic City through all of their great contributions in their capacities, and also to extend our social impact in our communities with organizations that help level the economic playing field with our families and our youth. With that said, I don't know if you've been told yet, but the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame has its own app as well. And I say that because the artist, Nicolosi, who's here tonight, donated, blessed us, invested in us with that app. And so we want to announce at this time as well that tonight, that Nicolosi, the artist in the far corner, will be auctioning off a commemorative Tyson and Don King portraits, and they're tonight until they're sold out. So help support the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame and the AC PAL.
You know, this thing is not a one-man show. Of course, Rod and Ray, and of course we have Roy Foreman over there. He did an outstanding job. And of course, Angela Crockett, where are you? Angela Crockett, she sent out more notices, and every day I got another notice. You know, years from now, I'm at the trivia. Years from now, everyone in here will answer this question. Who will be the first inductee into the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame? Well, right now, we're going to find out, as I'm going to bring the president back up here to make that special presentation, Ray McCline.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, I want to be able to say that Mike Hall, my mentor, I wouldn't be standing here talking boxing or doing anything close to this if it wasn't for Mike Hall investing in me as a 16-year-old young man. He seen something in me that I didn't even see in myself. He talked to me about God. He talked to me about being a respectable young man. He talked to me about boxing. He talked to me about life in general. I've visited places that I never in my life thought I would visit because of boxing and because of Mike Hall. So at this time, I'd like to say Mike Hall's name is being submitted as the first person into the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. And at this time, I'd like to call his son, Mike Hall Jr., who looks just like him, up here to accept on his behalf.
All right.
Seven champs. I know Dad would love to be here, and I'm happy to accept on his behalf, and to all of the honorees, it's a pleasure to be in such great company. Dad didn't do it for all of this, though. He did it because he had love for the sport, and he loved people. And so we want to thank everyone who had something to do with this effort, Mr. McCline and everyone here. And we appreciate everybody who had anything to do with this Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, and we appreciate everything. Thank you.
Okay, for our next inductee, this individual has authored over 80 sport books, mostly on boxing. He has been called the world's greatest boxing writer by the Veteran Boxers Association. If you don't believe me, you could have just asked him and he'd tell you the same thing. He's been the editor of Boxing Illustrated, Ring Magazine, and Fight Game. He has been in several movies. He's recognized as one of the greatest boxing historians and storytellers of all time. He won the Nat Flasher Award by the BWAA several years ago. I am proud to induct an individual who was also inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame several years ago, Burt Randolph Sugar. Unfortunately, there's no family member here, so I will accept his award in his behalf. Burt Randolph Sugar. The next individual who's being inducted tonight followed Muhammad Ali, and that's a very hard thing to do. But what a job he did. Won a 15-round decision against Ken Norton to become the heavyweight champion of the world. He defended that title 19 consecutive times, only second to Joe Louis. He knocked out 8 opponents straight in the heavyweight championship matches, and that matched Tommy Burns' all-time record. He had a streak of 48 in a row until someone sitting over there put it to an end. Had to say it, had to say it. But he's beaten guys like Ali and Shavers. You know his record. Let's hear it for the Easton assassin, Larry Holmes. Accepting the award is Rita Fraser Collins. She happens to be the daughter of Smokin' Joe Fraser. That's a woman for you.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the honor, and I'm grateful to actually be here. Unfortunately, Mr. Holmes was not able to attend. I was talking to some individuals earlier today about cloning ourselves, because we all want to be able to participate in all the wonderful things, but unfortunately we're not able to be at everything all the time. Mr. Holmes is honored to receive this award. We are grateful for all that you three R's and J's are actually doing as far as the event is concerned. I appreciate the boxing industry. I appreciate all the fans and all the love that you guys have. I am asking all of you to continue to support these individuals as far as the events are concerned, because it keeps boxing alive. And it's an extending of Atlantic City and doing wonderful and great things. And to have a dream and a vision and to be able to finally have it come to fruition is just a wonderful thing. So I accept this award for Larry Holmes. And thank you so much.
Okay, for our next inductee, this individual served as the Chief Medical Physician for the New Jersey State Athletic Control Board through the 70s, 80s, 90s, even the turn of the century. We had to have a top man because safety is number one when it comes to boxing. And this guy made everything happen, made it safe in New Jersey. He was a sought-out doctor to work corners in Las Vegas and also in Europe. I am proud to induct our next inductee, Dr. Frank Doghead, accepting the award to his wife and daughter.
Wow. My mom's over there. You should get the picture. And my cousin Nancy's here too. So on behalf of my mother and myself, I'm delighted to accept this honor by the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame bestowed on my father, Dr. Frank B. Doghead Jr. A graduate of Howard University Medical School in 1946, my dad returned to Atlantic City and practiced medicine here for 55 years. He served as the first Black chief physician at Atlantic City Medical Center while operating a private practice, conducting house calls until he retired, and serving as chief surgeon for the Atlantic City school system and police and fire departments. In his position as chief ringside physician for New Jersey Athletic Control Board, he became known as the fight doctor, a role he truly cherished and carried out skillfully, fairly, and ethically. He particularly enjoyed officiating boxing matches here in his hometown of Atlantic City. My father loved medicine. Daddy did not only take care of your health, he also took the opportunity to advise you on what you needed to do to maintain your health. He took his role as the state's fight doctor seriously and was always concerned about the physical condition of his boxers. He always referred to the boxers as his boxers. He took immense pride in his job to ensure their safety before, during, and after their bouts, often rendering instant options or opinions or critical medical rulings. My father cared for and maintained friendships with the likes of Sugar Ray Leonard, Mike Tyson, Saad Muhammad, Evander Holyfield, and Virgil Hill, to name a few. He traveled to other boxing venues at the special request of some of his boxers, but mainly he made sure he was at his neutral corner in Atlantic City. My mother and I were oftentimes not so neutral. I remember him scolding us at many bouts, saying, "Look, ladies, if you two are going to take sides, you need to sit in the back." You honor him today, and I graciously appreciate this honor on his behalf. If my dad was standing here now with himself, he would say, and grab the mic and say, with his voice simply, "Thank you."
Okay, for our next inductee. This man, first fight he ever went to was at Madison Square Garden in 1963. It was Doug Jones against a brash loudmouth called Cassius Clay. And that was his first fight. First of 3,514 fights that he would attend and cover. He's like a globetrotter when it comes to boxing. He was first an amateur boxer, but more importantly, he was a Vietnam vet. He has been inducted into the Pennsylvania Hall of Fame and the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame. In 2010, he was given the John Condon Award by the BWAA for long and meritorious service. He wrote for Ring Magazine, Boxing Illustrated, USA Today, Flash Gordon's Tonight. You know him as the Globetrotter, and I know him as a friend, Jack Obermeyer. Accepting the award is his daughter and Eric Butcher.
So, how did it rest? Like, trying to learn just how long it took years of being.
Some of you who know my father know that he's quite the storyteller and pretty quick with his comebacks and one-liners. I unfortunately did not inherit that gift. That's called a gift. So I asked a longtime dear friend to say a few words, but I also wanted to introduce Darlene Doctonville, my father's longtime love and companion. And I'll turn the mic over to Mr. Fred, better known as Freddie Blumstein, and Eric.
Thank you. It's truly a great honor to be asked to say a few words on behalf of Jack K.O. Obermeyer's longtime companion, Darlene, his daughter, Ellen, and his niece, Eileen. I met Jack over 30 years ago, and my wife still curses the day that I met him. He was the one that brought me into this sport. Just like Harold Letterman is now the unofficial official ringside at the HBO fights, Jack was the unofficial policeman of the sport. He would often write, "It's only boxing." When Jack covered a boxing show, his articles were precise, insightful, impeccable, and informative. It was almost as if you were there, even if you weren't. Boxing was around well before Jack Obermeyer came onto the scene, but it somehow doesn't feel the same without him. Heavens got its ace ringside reporter when he left us. Thank you.
I think I can't add much to what Freddie said. A lot of people here knew Jack. He was my best friend. I think a lot of people can say that that met Jack. And we miss him, and this honor, he would have loved this. And thank you very much.
I just want to say on Jack's behalf, thank you very much, and he would be totally honored. And he was the love of my life, and always will be. Thank you.
Let's hear it for Jack Obermeyer. This next inductee was regarded as a maverick, an innovator, a marketing whiz, a showman. He was involved in gaming and regulation for over 40 years. He was the owner of the resorts at the Tropicana. He brought in Riddick Bowe. He trained for 2 months right at the Tropicana for his heavyweight championship match. There's no one like this guy, and I'd like to bring up his wife. Right now, we are inducting right now Dennis Gomes. Dennis Gomes.
My gosh.
Well, some of my favorite memories for as long as I can remember was watching boxing fights with my dad. And he really did a lot to bring the sport to everyone. And I think part of the reason he had us always watching fights was that he respected all the training and hard work all the fighters put in, and they'd go toe to toe and give it their all. But once that bell rang, they were expected to stand up and shake hands with each other and help each other along. So that's a lesson I've carried along with me forever. And to have my dad honored and remembered for his love of boxing means the world to us, and I know my mom feels the same.
Yes, I do. I know that Dennis is smiling very, very big today as he's looking down on this amazing event that they put together. First of all, he would be so excited about being inducted into Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. And second, he would be so happy to be one of these amazing inductees. So Dennis had a passion for Atlantic City and for boxing. And when we were notified that he was going to be inducted, the family started to reminisce, and as Danielle said, some of our fondest memories were of seeing him being so excited about a boxing event that was coming, and then going to that boxing event with him and seeing his love for it. And I know he would be so excited to see that it's here, all these people are here in Atlantic City, and that the spirit of boxing is going so great. I know he would be so happy and so excited. So thank you very much.
Right now, I would like to bring up the Vice President of the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, and he happens to have a big brother by the name of George. Let's bring up Roy Foreman.
Thank you. It's just indeed a pleasure to be here, because I've been part of boxing in Atlantic City for a number of years, television, managing my brother, of course, and with Ray and Rod. It's just been an exciting venture the last 3 years for them to come and put this whole thing together. And without the fighters, nobody would be here. And that's why I'm kind of glad to have this opportunity to introduce who I think is one of the greatest warriors ever in the sport of boxing. One of them, because there was a lot of them, and that's Saad Muhammad. But the gentleman that's going to tell you about Matthew, because he can tell you even more, is a dear friend of mine, Mustafa and I have been together for like the last 30-something odd years, along with everybody else that's up on the stage. But he was Matthew's manager, confident, and perhaps confident to one of the greatest fighters ever, name-wise, athletic-wise, in the sport of boxing. And I told him the other day, it's one person you can think of that had two names and everybody knew he was talking about. One was Ali, and the other was the greatest. So I'm just proud to introduce my friend, who I've known for 30-some odd years, Mustafa Amin.
All right.
Good evening. Good evening. What an honor. Before I get started, many of you that know the life of Matthew Saad Muhammad know that he was an orphan. He was abandoned as a 4-year-old, found on the Ben Franklin Parkway in Philadelphia by Catholic nuns. He could not pronounce his name. I think he was shell-shocked from knowing that he heard his aunt tell his brother to leave him that day. They had too many children, and when the Catholic nuns found him, he couldn't even pronounce his name. And they decided to give him a name, and they named him Matthew. And they had to give him a last name. He was found in the Ben Franklin Parkway, and they gave him the name of Matthew Franklin. And as we know, he became a world champion. He became famous. And but he kept a burning desire to find out who he really was. So after he became champion, his story as a great champion became public. And we began to talk about the fact that we didn't know who he was. And long story short, Matthew offered a $10,000 reward for anyone that could provide any information to his true identity. Well, long story short, and we can go on, I think there should be movies made about it, but long story short, a woman came forward in Philadelphia. We had an attorney who was able to authenticate her claim, and matter of fact, she said some buzzwords that Matthew remembered as a 4-year-old, and we actually found out who he was. By that time, we'd gotten national attention. Good Morning America televised a grand reunion of him meeting his siblings, and it was just unbelievable. And everyone else knows he adopted the Islamic faith and became Matthew Saad Muhammad. But we found out that his real name was Antonio Loach. So all of the fighters know what I'm talking about, and the managers. Training camps are pretty brutal. You're there for 6-8 weeks, and you got to find something to laugh about. So of course we started calling him Antonio, and he hated it. Antonio Loach, and it was like an Italian name or something. But anyway, before I continue the story, I can't go much further. Matthew was adopted by a Portuguese immigrant, Mr. John and Catherine Santos, and we can't say enough about them, but he was raised in a household with Joe Johnson. Joe, would you stand up? This is Matthew's adopted brother. And he knew Matthew as a kid. He was an older brother, and I can honestly tell you about Joe. Joe was his brother as a kid, prior to boxing, during boxing, and throughout the rest of Matthew's life. He was a friend, a brother, and a confidant. So let's give Joe a round of applause. I've had the good fortune of actually working with fighters in the world. And we won't talk about the other fighter, but I have to mention his name. But thanks to Matthew Saad Muhammad, after Matthew, well, I left Matthew. I just couldn't, and, you know, Mr. Dwight Kwawi is here. And after the second Kwawi fight, I personally thought that, you know, Matthew should probably begin to do some other things. So we separated, but my luck got even better. Post-retirement, I was asked to travel with the greatest, Muhammad Ali. And thanks to my relationship with Matthew, I think that Muhammad Ali and Lonnie, they trusted me very much. I traveled the world. I saw things and heard things that I just couldn't dream of as a kid. So I actually worked for two fighters, and people always wonder, well, what does Mustafa do, or who is he? And I really don't have a long history in the fight business except for Matthew Saad Muhammad and Muhammad Ali. But let's get back to Matthew. I can guarantee you, as I look out, I see a lot of happy people here, especially with the inductees and the honorees. I can honestly tell you, and the people that know Matthew, he would have the biggest smile today of everyone in the room. He would be so excited. I mean, he had a 1,000-watt, megawatt smile. And he would be the happiest person in the room. I don't want to take up any more time. We got a lot of greats here, and I've got a million Matthew Saad Muhammad stories. So if anyone wants to approach me at any point, we can talk about it. But I want to be kind to the honorees. I'm going to give up the microphone. Thank you very much.
Okay, this next inductee is one of a kind. He started his amateur boxing career at 13. He became a writer at 15. He became a promoter. 2 years later, he has promoted over 1,000 matches. Tuesday night at the Trump, he almost promoted close to 200 shows at the Tropicana. He even promoted one time 2 individuals that never won a bout. He promoted it as the worst fighter in the world, and they had a sellout. Who am I talking about? Don Elbaum. By the way, that match ended up in a draw.
I got 1 minute, and all 10 minutes is going to be on Don King. This is just incredible. This is a thrill. This has just been one of the great, great times of my life. And to be inducted with these incredible, cool people in this sport, I just can't say enough. And there's just so many people I want to point out. I'm not going to go through that, but my mentor, Russell Peltz, and my student, Don King, all right? I cannot tell you how many people have come up to me and asked me about stories about Mr. King. I have 3 classic ones. One I cannot tell here. I'm with Don King in Cleveland. I'm promoting in Cleveland. And Don and I had an incredible relationship then. And Jimmy Carter is running for president of the United States, right? Mr. King and Carter are talking not once, not twice, 5, 6 times a day. And it was incredible. And finally, one day, I'm with Don so often when he was talking to the future president, And he said, he called him Jimmy, by the way. And I think Mr. Carter called him Mr. President. But anyway, he turned the phone over to me and I said, Mr. President, what an honor. I said, just so you know, Don King is doing everything. He is really pushing. Jimmy Carter became president of the United States. The headlines in the Cleveland Plain Dealer. His new president got in with the black vote and the Jewish vote. 2 days later, there was a major press conference at the Sheraton Hotel with all, forget the sports, all the city side, the news, they came from Columbus, they came from Cincinnati, they came from Toledo. They're all to see Don King because Don was all over the papers when Carter became president. The kicker to this is not only did he take credit for getting the black vote, he took credit for getting the Jewish vote. One more. Don and I, it was an incredible relationship, and we did a show for a black hospital that was going on there. He brought Muhammad Ali, who was Cassius Clay then, in the box exhibitions. I became so enamored, I just could not believe about Don, all right? And I sat down with him one day, and this was just right after the event that we held at the Cleveland Arena. And I said, Don, you are going to become the biggest boxing promoter this world has ever seen. And he just looked at me. I said, I'm going to take you to New York. I want to introduce you to Teddy Brenner of Madison Square Garden. I'm going to introduce you to Harry Marston, the president of Madison Square Garden. I'm going to take you to meet the writers from the New York News, New York Post. I think Dick Young. Dick Young was the New York Mirror then, so forth. I'm 5'7", he's 6+. And he looked down at me. He said, Don, what are you talking about? He said, they're all white, and I'm black. I said, they're all white. I was taught an incredible lesson by a fantastic Walden father. And I took my finger and I actually put it in his chest. I said, do not ever say that to me again. I said, Don, I'm taking you to New York. This is America. And he looked down at me. This is America? Yeah, maybe only in America. We haven't talked to each other since. You know, let me go with the Tropicana, all right? Because the Trop was something incredible. It was one of the great highlights of my life. I was living in Detroit, in New York, and I got a call in June of 1981 from a fellow by the name of Ted Minas, who I did not know. And Ted called me, he said, Don Albaum? I said, yes. He said, Don, they just opened up the Tropicana, they're opening this up and they want to bring boxing here. He said, I would like very much for you to come in and see about doing the matchmaking. I came in, I sat down with the powers that be of the Trop, which had not quite opened yet, and Ted Minas. And Ted and so forth and the people there said, we'll give you a 2-year contract. We want you to move to Atlantic City. We're going to give you a suite at the hotel. You can take 6 people to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All right. It was at the employees' cafeteria, but it sounded good. But anyway, they just said, we want you to do a monthly show. And I talked to them. I said, why don't we do something different? Let's do a weekly card. And they looked at me. They said, what are you talking about? I said, we do a weekly card. We'll make the Tropicana the boxing capital of the casinos in America. And they said, can you do it? They said, we can't do it on the weekends because we got acts coming in. I said, let's take the middle of the week. How about Tuesday night? Tuesday night at the Trop. December the 15th, the worst month to put events on any place, was the first show. It was Edwin Birouette and Norman Goines. And on the undercard, from Indianapolis, Pennsylvania, was a fighter by the name of Donald King. No relation, all right? But he was on the card. We sold out on the 15th. We sold out on the 22nd. We did the first Tuesday in January. I got a 2-year contract. The contract went on 3 more years to December of 1986. On December the 15th, 81, it was incredible. And just the events there were fantastic. Bob Lee was the commissioner when it started out, all right? And Bob was great. He let me just do whatever I wanted. The fights were good. Everything was fantastic. And then, one of the greatest referees made, in my mind at that time, the worst decision of his life, he became commissioner of New Jersey, Larry Hazzard. The first time Larry and I got together, it was a Tuesday night, and I had a show with a fighter, a 4-rounder, with a fighter with 1 pro fight, fighting a fighter with 9. The fighter with the 1 pro fight was 1-0. And the fighter with the 9 fights was 0-9. And Larry said, I'm sorry, he was commissioner then. I did not call him Larry. He said, Don, I am not allowing a fighter 0-9. I said, what are you talking about? I said, this kid's 1-0. The other guy's got all the experience. You're not having a fighter 0-9 fight in Atlantic City. We got there. I said, Larry, please. He said, no. I said, but Larry, he's only been knocked out 7 times. Just so you know, the fight did not happen, all right? Jack Nicholson came to the shows. Bobby De Niro came to the shows. Joe Pesci came. Sharon Stone came. Dustin Hoffman came. And an incredible biker by the name of Chuck Zito came, all right? And I've known Chuck for a long time, but the greatest thing he ever did for me, he let me come into Scores. I was on the house anytime I wanted, and boy, that was a pleasure. Just so you know, again, this situation, the Trop, which had Mario Maldonado, building up to Simon Brown, Maurice Blocker, there were fights after fights there without going to all the names. And I just want to say, this is just one of the great honors of my life. And I want to thank all the other inductees and the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. Thank you.
I told you, he was one of a kind. The next inductee started right here in Atlantic City. He was a timekeeper, he was a judge, he was a referee in the amateur ranks. He was an inspector from 1978 to 1982. And then he became a professional boxing judge in 1984. He had his first title bout in 1986, one of over almost 200 title bouts in all. He's one of the only referees in the history of boxing that has refereed title bouts from the minimum weight all the way up to the heavyweight. He's been recognized as the #1 referee on the planet several times. He is one of a kind. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame just a few years ago. He has refereed in more countries and more states than any other referee on the planet. Let's hear it for Triple S. Triple S, sensational Steve Smoker.
First, I have to correct Henry. Ice, what up, Ice? Good to see you. Bless you. I've been in with everybody in this joint. Be that as it may, Henry was rather judge, but the judge of the city court. Been a referee my entire life, and I'm thrilled. I think Bill Johnson and I share the honor of being the only among these fabulous inductees, the only born and bred Atlantic City natives on the dais or being inducted this evening. And I'm very proud of that fact. A product of the Atlantic City school system, Atlantic City High School. The ACs over here, fabulous. I've had the distinct honor and privilege to work for every one of these gentlemen who are being honored tonight. Mr. King, Mr. Gell, Mr. Peltz, Mr. Duva, Dino Duva. I hope I didn't miss anybody. And speaking of Don Elbaum, I am the pure product I'm the child of the Tuesday night at the Trop. I was there almost every Tuesday throughout the tenure of the Tropicana. And it was where no one would have the benefit of honing their skill, learning their craft. Work makes you better. And 82 to 86, 87, that's where I honed my skill under initially an icon who I'm going to tell these guys better be honored real soon, and that's Jersey Joe Walcott. My first boss, the guy that gave me my license in my hand. That's a story unto itself. Bob Lee, I hope members of his family are here. He's being honored this evening. He treated me like gold. He left the commission and became the IBF, and the IBF took care of me, and I had my first title fight overseas. In those days, they wanted to see how you worked out before they put you on American TV. And things worked out well. Bob was pleased, came back and began my title career. But to be recognized and honored in your own hometown with the people that you work with from time immemorial, this has been a fabulous memory lane weekend for me. My first exam, Frank Doggett. You can't, these memories will always be there. Every face I've seen. Last night we had all Atlantic City, some workers that I had been with as city solicitor. I've had a fabulous career, and I pray to God that God allows me to continue. There's a piece of paper that says I think with the retirement of Pat Russell in California, I could be the most senior working official, if not in America, the world. So as we say at the Pal Gym, let the beat go on. God bless you all.
Okay, for our next inductee, after 22 bouts, he was undefeated. He beat guys like Mike Nixon and Christy Elliott, and also Mike Quarry. And then he got a shot at the light heavyweight championship of the world against an Argentina who won his last 43 bouts in a row. His name was Victor Galindez. He had 10 title fights, all wins. Mike was a big underdog. Nobody thought he was going to win except for Mike. He fought the blueprint fight of the year. One of the greatest fights I've seen as far as picking a person apart, because in the 13th round, we had ourselves a new light heavyweight champion of the world, and he's being inducted into the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. Let's give it up for Mike Rossman.
I'm going to say something for Mike Rossman. Believe me, I kind of knew he was going to do this. I'm telling you, it took everything in me to get Mike Rossman here. There was times I would call him, he would answer the telephone, he would ask me, who was this? I would say, it was Ray McCline. He was like, what do you want? I told him we were going to be inducting him into the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. He was like, okay. I'll call him again. He would say, when is it? I would tell him the date. He was like, okay. I would have Angela from our office call him. He would respond. And then I had to contact the Roofer Union, who, I think, what is it, Local 30. They came out in force. They bought over 40 tickets, if not more, for Mike Rossman to show support. There were times Mike Rossman would hang up on me, and then he would ask me to meet him for lox and bagels. So I'm happy to see him come out, and he's someone that I know definitely deserved to be inducted into the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. And there was many of people on Facebook and you see him in person, and they would say, don't forget Mike. And our committee, overwhelmingly, inducted Mike Rossman into it. And I'm glad to see him make it out, and I appreciate you for coming out.
Yes, he does have his roofer jacket on. Our next inductee was one of the best boxing writers before he took over the mic for ESPN back in 1985 alongside Al Bernstein. He went to Madison Square Garden Channel, then HBO International, Showtime, PBC. He won the Sam Taub Award for Excellence by the Boxing Writers Association of America. He's one of the few commentators that can analyze a fight and do the blow-by-blow reporting. In fact, he's done that in the same card because a lot of times he was the only commentator. Let's give it up for our next inductee, David Bontempo.
Thank you very much, Henry. It's a delight to see you all. Thank you for all being here. And my stories won't be with a certain boxer or a certain thing that we did, because in the media, we are chronicling their exploits and we are trying to capture their magic because there is a ton of it that they bring to the table. I would say that ever since the day I stormed down the stairs in Florham Park and told a complete stranger about what happened in our Monopoly game, that he had asked about, the twists and turns and how the game changed, there's been a fascination about what elevates some people to victory, how do things unfold, what are the big moments. And if you're in media and boxing, you're going to find plenty of big moments. When the Atlantic City Press decided to make me their boxing writer and we came out here, the pathway to victory was the industry itself. This was a magical time because of a set of factors that you could only dream of. Atlantic City was making its mark alongside Las Vegas and competing with Las Vegas in the casino business and using boxing as the catalyst to do it. So, since we had this great amount of talent looking for a venue, and we had casinos attracting high rollers through boxing, and we had this wonderful staggering that every couple of years a new casino would open, we had this perpetual realm of magic. And Atlantic City was a cavalcade of power brokers, boxers, promoters, managers, network officials, all coming in and out of here to make their mark and make their statement. And it created all the wonderful things we had here and made Atlantic City a boxing capital. This was a marketplace of deals and dreams. And not all dreams took place in the big title fights. The things that warm your heart sometimes covering the sport would be someone like a Ben Serrano, who was here in 1982, and the other half of that Donald King story, Don Obama. Nobody knew who this guy was when he came in here. He was 4-9. But when he knocked out his opponent, the crowd at the Tropicana erupted. Benny, Benny, Benny. They screamed his name, these people who he had won over. And it really underscores how in boxing, you can be an underdog and walk into a place and you can walk out owning the building. And for Benny Serrano, that was the story of a lifetime. And there are many stories like that when you cover boxing on your way up, which is what it did for me. Then in 1985, when ESPN called and said, "Can you do a fight for us?" Well, I could, and I'm happy to say that 32 years later, I still am. To do it at this level and to go to the places, you measure. Is it the 2,500 fights you've called? The 180 cities? Probably not. I think what sticks with you the most is the idea that maybe there are 10, 15 boxing announcers who have the opportunity to do this, as opposed to if you were an NBA announcer or a baseball announcer, there could be 60 jobs in those sports. But in boxing, these jobs are a coveted few, and that's why it is something that is a cherished feeling all the time, and that's why, for me, boxing never, ever gets old. We chronicle all the things the fighters do, whether it's the southpaw style against the righty, whether the corner should have stopped the fight, what happens when this guy moves up against that guy, what will that situation be like? These are the grist of the mill situations. You might call that the marinade of boxing. For anybody who knows me a long time, imagine a cooking reference. But it does happen, and the sport does manufacture itself that way and comes out. So as we conclude and come here tonight, I'm thrilled to be in Atlantic City for what the Hall of Fame has done, to be with the architects of the era that is unprecedented in boxing, for all the magic that came through. And there must be a magical scriptwriter with the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame too. I talked about the boxing casino marriage. How about that 20 years ago today, I met my lovely wife, Susan. Can you beat that for a perfect script? So for my wife, my daughter, Nylea, family, friends, people who have traveled, to the press that got me set up, for people and friends and mentors in boxing along the way. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame and for creating a memory for me that will last a lifetime.
Again, this next honoree needs no introduction. Straight out of Temple University. At the age of 22, he was called the Boy Wonder. He became a promoter at that age. Where did he promote? Blue Horizon. Who was in the main event? Bad Benny Briscoe. He was still promoting at that venue 40 years later. He also went to the Spectrum for 8 years. He had a stable of boxers. 2 of them beat a guy by the name of Marvelous Marvin Hagler. And then, of course, he crossed the pond into Atlantic City, New Jersey. And he promoted hundreds of matches over here as well, boxing cards. He won the James J. Walker Award for the Boxing Writers Association. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Let's give it up for Jay, without the period, Russell Pells.
me tell you a little story about things I learned in boxing, one in particular. As Henry said, I started when I was 22. This was 1969, and then for the next 7.5 months, we promoted 15 shows at the Blue Horizon. In those days, they didn't have all the medical restrictions, so it was a lot easier. All you needed was a heartbeat, and sometimes not even that. But I turned 23 that December, and my first show in 1970, I featured one of my boyhood heroes by the name of George Benton. You may know George is a terrific trainer, but he was an outstanding fighter. He lost like 13 out of 76 fights. So he fought for me in January of 1970 at the Blue Horizon, and he won. And we made about $300 on the show. We were charging $5 and $3 to get in, and I paid George $1,000, which was a lot of money back then. And when the show was over, his manager, whom I regard as good a manager in the history of boxing as I ever knew, a man named Joe Granby, he came to me and said, "When can we fight again for you?" I said, "Joe, you can fight for me in March." He said, "Okay." So I went home and I promoted another show 2 weeks later, and I started thinking, do I really want to go through the aggravation of paying George Benton $1,000 and an opponent $600 when I could buy a whole main event in those days for like $800 or $900? But I was so intimidated by Joe Granby because he'd been around boxing his whole life. Bob Montgomery, Richie Cates, Charlie Scott, Tony Thornton. I didn't know how to back out of it. And I'd go to the gym every night, Champ's Gym in North Philly, and as the weeks went on, Benton wasn't coming into the gym. I said, okay, maybe he's sick, maybe got another fight, maybe Granby changed his mind. And January turned into February, and now I started calling other fighters, still running every 2 weeks. And then the fight was scheduled for March 25th, like 3.5 weeks before the fight. I'm at the top of the steps at the gym. Aren't all gyms at the top of a long set of steps? And here comes George up with his raggedy old pale yellow suitcase, which he used as his gym bag. The kind where, you know, the flipper's on the end, you flip it and they open up. And I said, "Oh, George, what are you doing here?" He said, "Russell, aren't I fighting for you in a few weeks?" I said, "Well, I hadn't seen you, George. I hadn't seen you in the gym, so I was making other plans." So there was a payphone right there as soon as you walked into the gym, and those of you who remember payphones. You put a dime or a quarter in, and he calls Granby up. And George had that sandpaper voice, hoarse. He hands me the receiver. Granby never called me Russell. He called me promoter, entrepreneur, impresario. He says, "Promoter." Granby was about 60 at the time. I'm 23. He says, "George tells me you may not be using them on March 25th. So I said, "Joe, we never signed a contract." And he said to me, I'll never forget it. He said, "Isn't your word any good?" He made me feel this big. I said, "Forget it, Joe. Forget it. The fight's on. You're going to fight." So the fight came off, and actually it was the first time I lost money on a show. But I kept my word, and I was honored to have promoted George Benton's last 2 fights in Philadelphia. So I'm going to fast forward now to 1982, and by now Granby and I are very close, mutual respect, and I was getting ready to participate in a cable TV series with the late Dan Duva, who had gotten together a group of cable systems to televise monthly cards. And Frank Gelb got us into resorts. This was April of 1982, and we needed a big name. So Danny called me one day. He said, "How about Tex Cobb?" I said, "Okay." Tex Cobb was managed by Joe Granby. So I called Joe up and we made the deal. We were paying Tex Cobb $20,000 to open this cable series. So I met Joe on a Sunday. I picked him up at his house. And we drove and had breakfast at the famous deli in Philadelphia. And he signed the contract for $20,000 for Tex Cobb to fight Jeff Shellberg at resorts. So I took him home, I dropped him off at his house. I drove about 25 minutes home. And as soon as I got home, Linda's on the phone, my wife, she says, Joe Granby just called. Hear it? You know, talk to him. What could this be? Hey, promoter, guess who just called me? I said, I have no idea, Joe. He said, Don King. So my heart sank. I said, what's up, Joe? He just offered me $500,000 for Tex Cobb to fight Larry Holmes in May or June. I said, what do you think I told him? I said, I have no idea, Joe. He said, I told him I can't do it, but I made a deal with you, and I'm not going to back out of it. So I said, what did Don say? He said, you don't want to know what he said. So, you know, you learn things like that. Tex Cobb went through with the fight for us. He got cut early in the fight. He knocked out Jeff Schellberg in the 7th round. And later that year, in November of 1982, he did get his shot at Larry Holmes and lost a 15-round decision. The one that Tex Cobb said he didn't really lose to Larry Holmes. He just lost the first 15 rounds. So I'm not up here to tell you that I'm perfect, because we all have skeletons in our closet. But through that incident, you learn that if you don't have your word, you have nothing. Thank you.
And by the way, you know, Russell and his family are here with a heavy heart as he lost his son just a little over 2 weeks ago, and our hearts and sympathy go out to you and your family. Our next inductee brought back boxing in Atlantic City after a 10-year drought. The year was 1973. 6 years later, we had world title fights with Saad Muhammad and John Conti. This individual was involved in just about every boxing casino in Atlantic City. From 1982 to 1985, we had 521 shows, and this man was involved in over half of them. He was also involved in the Foreman-Holyfield fight at the Convention Center. Let's hear it for Atlantic City's own Frank Gelb. I feel like he lives in Atlantic City.
He should be.
Think they get it.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and most of all, to thank the gentlemen and ladies that were on the board that elected this fine group of people for the initial induction into the Atlantic City Hall of Fame. And before I tell any of the stories I have, half of them Russell stole from me already. But the one or two that I may have, I have to first say that I thank my family and my wife. I was warned by that to say it importantly, so I've said it. Those of you who really want to hear about Atlantic City stories, there are several that I remember very, very well. But one that I remember the most was in the mid-1980s. Those of you who were old enough to remember back then would remember that the NFL went on strike. And by going on strike for the amount of weeks that they went on strike, the various networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, were forced to provide sports programming for the weekends on Saturday and Sunday, similar like ABC's Wide World of Sports and other programs. Well, the easiest way they could do things on a short notice was by doing boxing, because boxing is in a 24-foot square ring. They only need a few cameras, and that's what they elected to do to fill the time slot until the strike was settled. So my most memorable time of boxing during that period of time is that we did sometimes 3 shows in one day at 3 separate casinos on 3 different networks. And what we would do if we did a show at the Sands at, say, 4 o'clock, then we'd run over to the Trump Plaza and do one at 5 o'clock, and then to resorts to do one at 6 o'clock. These are just the main events that I'm talking about. Don't forget all the undercards and everything else that have taken place. So of all the fights and all the events that I've been associated with, I'd like to just say that that era was the most memorable for me in boxing, but the whole trip down memory lane and the time that I've afforded to enjoy everybody that's here is most enjoyable for me. So I thank you, and I thank you for being elected.
This next inductee opened up Resorts International in Atlantic City, and they had their very first casino boxing event in this city. He's the one that's responsible. He had many fights during the 80s, the booming era. He went to the Bally's. He also went to Boardwalk Hall. He brought in celebrities like Elton John, Cher, Paul McCarthy, the Eagles, Neil Diamond. Back to boxing. How about for the IBF Heavyweight Championship of the World, where Evander Holyfield and Chris Bird. He also brought in guys like Mayweather and Hopkins. And of course, the trilogy, the last 2 fights of Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward. Let's give it up for our next inductee, Ken Condon.
Thank you, Henry. Well, you know, when I started at Resorts, I was only 10 years old. Because I started as a 23-year-old kid, and I quickly became Atlantic City's first casino host. And I was rushing people from various different locations in the casino up to all the events that Frank was doing at Resorts. And I really got to become a boxing fan at that time. But as a side note, my 94-year-old mother, a couple of months ago, mentioned to me that she liked boxing when she was a kid. And I said, you never told me this before. I don't understand this. You know I've been doing boxing most of my career now. She says, yeah, your grandfather was an usher at the Newark Armory when they used to do fights in the Newark Armory, because she grew up in Newark and I grew up in Orange. So I think it was inherited, the genes, that I'm a true boxing fan through my mother's love of boxing. So I'm very appreciative of that. As you know, I'm on the different side of the equation than these guys. I'm the guy that answers the phone and says, Ken, we got a great fight. We want to put it in Atlantic City. You know, I need this much money to make it happen. And I think we can do this amount of people at the fight. And at that point, I have to make a decision. I have to decide how accurate are they. I usually discount it by 20%, fellows, just so you know. And it started from there, and just became a roller coaster for me for many, many years. I joined Bally's in the early 90s, and Bally's basically didn't have any kind of a mantra about itself. I really sort of was encouraged to say, okay, what are we going to make Bally's? And I basically took boxing as a theme at Bally's and turned Bally's into really the renaissance of boxing after the Trump era and the Tyson and the Holyfield era, and it's been going that way ever since. Now, I retired from being the president of Bally's in 2007, and I stayed on hoping to keep the boxing program alive and keeping things going. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention one particular boxer who I did get close to, and a fella that basically was our boxing program in Atlantic City for a long, long time, and that's Arturo Gatti. Arturo Gatti had 6 sellouts in a row in Atlantic City, when times in boxing were really not at the top of the mark. You know, Arturo was our boxing program for many, many years, and I'm very appreciative of Arturo being the person he was and being the draw he was, and I thank him very much. I do have one Don King story to mention, because Don and I go back a long way. My boss's name was Arthur Goldberg. He was chairman of the company, chairman of the Bally's, and Don and Arthur were very friendly. So we were doing a press conference up in New York, and we're promoting the show, and I come back to Atlantic City the next day. Now remember, I'm the president of Bally's. I'm supposed to be running the casino, 5,000 employees, making sure everything's going well. So at the press conference, Don made a quote and called me the light of the boardwalk. And it showed up on the front page of the New York Times. So I got a call from Mr. Goldberg that next morning and said, "Are you the boxing president or are you the president of Bally's?" And I'll never forget that. It's the only time I've ever been on the front page of the New York Times, Don. Thank you very much. But I think the most important thing to remember why we're here tonight, you know, I'm the local guy in the last 20 years, been promoting all the fights at Boardwalk Hall, and it really started as a small boxing program at Bally's in our ballroom with the Duva family. And they helped us create that Bally's boxing program, helped us outgrow the Bally's ballroom, move into the upstairs ballroom at Boardwalk Hall with Pernell Whitaker and some great fights, and Gatti and Robinson, and then just kept moving along until we got to the big room at Boardwalk Hall. So I want to thank Ray McCline and his staff for what they did tonight, because I think this could be a new beginning. Because things, as the casinos are starting to right-size themselves and get out from all the debt that they've had and free up some marketing dollars, let's hope that something small can start out and start developing a boxing program again and build it up into a big boxing program the way it should be in Atlantic City. So thank you, Ray. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you, members of the press. I thank you very much, and have a great night.
This next inductee really needs no introduction. He is the most exciting boxer I've ever seen, especially in Atlantic City. 23 times he fought here. 4 world title fights. 2 division champion. He fought Wilson Rodriguez in a match that he was losing, and all of a sudden he comes back like a tiger and knocks the guy out. He also fought a guy by the name of Mickey Ward in the trilogy, one of the greatest trilogies in boxing history. He had 5 fights that was voted the fight of the year. 1 fight was voted the knockout of the year. There was another one that was voted the upset of the year. The only thing is that he was the one that got upset. But right now, I would like to induct the Thunder himself, Arturo Gatti. Accepting the award is Mike Sciarra, Chuck Zito, and Sophia Gatti.
I just want to say I'm very proud and honored to be here today accepting this award for Arturo Gatti, the original blood and guts warrior who thrilled thousands of fans and generated more money for Atlantic City than any boxer in history. His trilogy with Mickey Ward became one of HBO's 10 greatest fights. Ring Magazine awarded him Fighter of the Year 4 times. And I want to thank everybody at Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame for his induction and keeping the memory of Arturo Thunder Gatti alive. His fights, his name, his legacy will live forever. Thank you.
I was only 3 years old when my father was killed, but I know if he was here, he would be very proud and honored to be inducted into the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. I meet many people all the time who tell me how much they love watching my dad box. I am blessed and honored to be Arturo Gatti's daughter. Nona, Zia, and Zio, and I want to thank Atlantic City and all of his fans for this award for my dad. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone here. We greatly appreciate this honor to be inducted to the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. Thank you to Mr. Chuck Zito for his support throughout all these years of the investigation to find out what truly had happened. I'm humbled to be up here as well with Sophia and Chuck and my wife and my children to accept this award. Thank you all. Atlantic City has been very good to the Gattis, and we appreciate it very much. We're humbled and we're grateful for it all. Thank you.
How do you follow that? By the way, Arturo Gatti was also inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. And I'm proud to say that I had voted for him to do so. This next individual won his first 19 bouts in a row by knockout. 12 in the very first round. He became the youngest heavyweight champion of the world when he knocked out Trevor Berbick. He also unified the titles when he beat Bone Crusher Smith and Tony Tucker. He was undefeated, 37 wins in a row. And of course, we all know what happened in Tokyo. He also won the crowns again in the WBA and the WBC until he got beat by Holyfield twice and of course Lennox Lewis. He's probably one of the most recognizable individuals in the world today, and his name is Iron Mike Tyson. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. We got a call late last night that he had a family problem. He couldn't make it here, but he did want to congratulate each and every one of the other honorees, and he wishes he could be here. We do have a short presentation, so let's roll the camera.
Congratulations to Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. Congratulations to all the inductees. Wonderful. I've been here when I had an accident with my leg. And thank you again. of Fame in Atlantic City. Thank you.
Let's hear for Iron Mike Tyson. This individual never had an amateur bout. After 3 bouts, he only won 1. But then he put a streak together for 14 in a row, beating fellow inductee Mike Grossman and also a guy by the name of James Scott before he got a shot at the light heavyweight championship of the world against Saad Muhammad. He came home with the light heavyweight championship of the world. He would go on to lose that title against Michael Spinks. But all of a sudden, he went up in weight to the cruiserweight division, where he again won the world title. And he defended that title against Leon Spinks. And of course, he lost that title in a very close decision against Evander Holyfield. He's known as the Camden Buzzsaw. Let's hear for Dwight Kwawe. Dwight Muhammad Kwawe. Also an International Boxing Hall of Famer.
Thank you, everybody. I'm really honored, and that's Dwight Muhammad Kwawe. I like to get it right. I had a great career. I thank everybody for honoring the fighters. It's hard. We fight hard. We work hard. And I know everybody say, "Give back, give back." You know, they tell us that. They tell us poor people, give back. And I feel like you giving back to us. And just make it a little greener. Don. So I'm honored. I know I'm speaking for everybody. People, when I got into boxing, like I said, I don't have this career. I took it on the advice of a friend who saw my work on the streets of Camden. The biggest, baddest arena you want to find. We didn't believe in guns back then, for real. We didn't carry guns, man. It was all fair stuff. I'm recently working with kids, and I try to get that same integrity, fortitude, and direction that was given to me on the streets of Camden, and give it to them. I think each one needs to teach one. Again, you hear that done? All right, everybody else mess with you. I might as well mess with you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, for our next inductee. His 2 older sons wanted to box. He went down to Atlantic City, Pal, and wanted to box, but he went along with them, got interested, and he became a trainer, not only to them, but also to his youngest son, Levander. He also became trainers of Bruce Seldon, Carl Williams, and of course, Dwight Muhammad Kwawe. He still trains to this day, amateurs in the gym and pros. He's a fixture in this city. Let's hear it for our next inductee, Bill Johnson.
I want to thank everybody for being here. First of all, I want to thank God for allowing my son Lavanda and myself for this journey. I also want to thank the boxers that had the confidence in me and allowed me to train and work with them. And also thank the people of Atlantic City for being with us on this journey. And thank you too, the AC Boxing Hall of Fame Committee, for electing us both. Thank you.
Okay, for our next inductee. He was unbeaten in his first 23 bouts, scoring 18 knockouts, 16 in a row before he got a shot at the world title, and he came up a little short. Then he got a shot at the title again, and he came up short again. And once again, he had a shot at the title, and once again, he came up short. But then he went to Italy and came home with the IBF Lightweight Championship of the World when he scored a 7th round knockout. He came back to Atlantic City, and the city celebrated his win. The Johnson family celebrated with them. But that celebration came to a crushing end just 3 months later, as not only did Lavender Johnson lose that bout, but he also lost his life. This is one time where his heart was too big for his own good. But he is being inducted right now into the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. He's following his father. Let's give it up for Lavender Johnson. And Brother Craig will accept the award. We can start clapping again.
This is surreal. You know, my brother's looking down at us right now, and as always, they say, thank God, thank Atlantic City, we're number one, we love you.
I love his speech. The next inductee, I knew him since I was about 10 years old. He started his boxing career in 1938 in the Diamond Gloves. 2 years later, he became a Diamond Glove champion. His career as a pro went from 1942 to 1945. But then he became a promoter, a matchmaker, a cut man, a trainer. He did it all. He promoted the first world title fight in Atlantic City history when Joey Giardello beat Dick Tiger for the middleweight championship of the world. He also promoted an ice world for 8 consecutive years. In 1984, he went to the Olympic Games and came home with a bunch of medalists that was second to none. I'm not even going to start mentioning their names, but I do want to mention one guy. He's standing in the back over there because just a few months ago, my friend Lou Duva passed away. And out of 19 world champions that he handled, there was only one that showed up for his wake and funeral. And that man is standing in the back over there. He won a gold medal in the Olympics. He was a world champion, Mark Breland. I am proud to induct an International Boxing Hall of Famer and my friend, Lou Duva. Accepting the award will be Dino and Donna Duva. I guess Donna just waved me off. I guess you're it.
Thank you, Henry. First, it's an honor to be here on behalf of my father. I want to first congratulate Ray McCline and the entire Hall of Fame team that started up this Atlantic City Hall of Fame. I think it's a great organization that's going to grow and grow. And it was a long time coming, and I want to thank Ray for starting it. Next, I want to congratulate every one of the inductees, every one of you. My father had a great history and relationship with, and because of him, I did too, and my entire family. Congratulations sincerely from all of us on behalf of my father. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. It's been a long night, plus Don King still needs to speak. The only thing I want to say is my father taught our family one thing. Remember where you came from. Remember your roots. And Atlantic City in New Jersey is our roots. We grew up here. We grew as a family and as an organization here. And Atlantic City in its heyday was very important to my father. All the great fights he was in. Going back to, as Henry said, the 1963 title fight is Convention Hall. And then leading up to the 70s, 80s, 90s, and as recently as the last few years. And this award would be very special to him. He's been inducted into the International Hall of Fame, many other places. But this award would be as special as anything. As Henry said, today would have been his 95th birthday. And he would have loved to be here. He would have been very excited about it. And most importantly, this is where he came from. This is where we came from. And I'm just so honored on behalf of him and our family to be here in the first Hall of Fame class. And I look forward to many more dinners and affairs. And you have our support going forward forever. Atlantic City, in its heyday, was as important to boxing as anywhere in the world. And as Ken said before, I hope that the casinos, the promoters, everyone can find a way to build Atlantic City boxing back up to where it was. And anything I can do to help that, I pledge my support. And I really appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you.
Okay, for our next inductee, one of the greatest Olympic teams ever was in 1976. And this man came home with a gold medal. In his first many fights as a pro, he beat guys like Yaki Lopez and Marvin Johnson before beating Eddie Mustafa Muhammad to win the WBA World Light Heavyweight Championship. 20 months later, he beat another guy that was sitting right there. Now he's not, Dwight Muhammad Qawi. He also became the first IBF Light Heavyweight Champion. He defended his title 10 times, but then he went up in weight class. He wanted to be the first light heavyweight champion ever to win a heavyweight title. He went against a guy with a record of 48-0, 19 title defenses. But guess what? After 15 rounds of boxing, we had ourselves a new heavyweight champion of the world, and his name was Michael Spinks. He went on to beat Holmes again, and he also knocked out Jerry Cooney, and of course we won't talk about the Mike Tyson fight. So let's hear it for our next inductee in the International Boxing Hall of Famer himself, Michael Spinks. And I have to tell you, Michael is one of the nicest individuals I've ever met in the boxing field. He's a real class act.
Always wanted to do that. Anyway, I'd like to first thank my Heavenly Father, Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. All right. With all my heart that every fight I participated in, I prayed very hard first. I trained hard and I prayed hard because I didn't really want to do all the fighting, And, but I knew if I depended on the Lord, He would, maybe work through me, which I think He did. And so I was blessed, really blessed to take the vows. But I gave Him all the honor and the glory. All right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. But anyway, I'd like to congratulate all the inductees. And it's really nice seeing a lot of the guys that I haven't seen in a long time. Mike Rossman, and I haven't seen Kwame in a while. Me and Kwame, people don't know about me and Kwame. We had a lot of, we did a lot of boxing in Joe Frazier's gym, nearly every day. And then I even took him on the road with me a couple of times to help me get ready for a fight. Because he was a hard guy. I mean, punch hard, and but I was able to tame him a little bit. Anyway, I like to thank the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame for, bestowing this honor on me, and I appreciate it. And I'd like to thank you all for showing up and, be a witness to what they do. So anyway, thanks a lot.
Okay, for our next inductee, he won 3 New Jersey State Golden Glove Championships. And instead of turning pro, his mother said, "Larry, you're going to get yourself an education." He became a principal in the school system, but then in the 1970s, he worked his way back to boxing as a referee. He became one of the top referees in the 1970s, and from 1978 to 1985, he was voted 3 times as the top referee in the sport. But late in 1985, the governor of the state of New Jersey had bigger things for him and made him the New Jersey State Athletic Commission. And he put all these rules and regulations and policies in, enforcing all the rules for the betterment of all the boxers' health and welfare. He also put the instant replay in. Well, what can I say? He's a friend of mine, and in 1993, they brought him back to referee 2 bouts. One was against Pernell Whitaker and Buddy McGirt, and the other one was his only fight he had in the heavyweight championship division when Riddick Bowe beat Jesse Ferguson. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I believe it was in 2010. And now we are going to induct him into the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. Let's hear it from the commissioner himself, Larry Hazzard. He also played in the movie Ali. He played Zach Clayton, who was the first ever black man to referee a world heavyweight title bout. So he's a movie star.
Thank you very much, Henry. Before I begin, let me thank Mr. Ray McCline, Roger Green, and my dear friend, Mr. Roy Foreman, for having this great vision. Because boxing is alive, and it will be alive here in Atlantic City for many, many years to come. Next, if you will allow me, I would certainly like to thank my wife, Patricia, and my family, because for all of these years of support that they've given me. You know, I came in 1978, Jersey Joe Walcott was the commissioner of boxing in the state of New Jersey, and his deputy commissioner, Bob Lee, Robert W. Lee, Bob Lee, and his very able assistant, Marion Muhammad, they brought me here to Atlantic City. I was recruited out of the amateur ranks in boxing as a referee in the state of New Jersey. And in 1978, I had toiled in the vineyards of the amateurs for 11 years. Bob Lee recruited me. He brought me here to Atlantic City and gave me the opportunity to exercise my skills and abilities as a professional boxing referee. During those years, of course, my children were all toddlers, and my wife had realized that when she married me, she also married the sport of boxing. And so she deserves a lot of credit for that, because I spent a lot of time away from home. I was in Atlantic City weekly, refereeing fights, great series of bouts that Don Elbaum presented at the Tropicana. Tuesday night, Thursday night, there was a Thursday night series. Some weeks, I could be seen on USA television. Then on Saturday, you would see Larry Hazzard again, CBS Sports, Channel 2, and then Sunday afternoon, Wide World of Sports, Channel 7. So I was getting a great deal of visibility as a boxing referee, and for that I am eternally grateful. Several years later, Bob Lee, he created the International Boxing Federation, the IBF. And then he took me around the world to referee world championship fights all over the globe. And I made quite a name for myself. And Bob used to say to me, he said, Larry, when you're in the ring as the third man, you make me feel very comfortable. And those words always served during my career as a referee as great words of inspiration for me to be the best that I could be. And I strived very hard to do that. I was committed to the sport of boxing. I was an educator at the same time, and I shared my passion for both. Working with young people, working with fighters, and I tried to always be a positive role model. And I never thought about my longevity as a referee as being the measurement for my greatness. But it was in my integrity was the important thing for me. And I always made it my business to make the health and safety of the fighters first. So I would stop fights when I felt that a fighter was taking too much punishment, because I always felt that it was better to stop one a little bit too early than to stop one too late. So that was my mantra, and I carried that for many years. And so God has blessed me in many ways, because I have had the unique opportunity to be associated with all of these great men who are being honored here today, along with me. Don Elbaum, don't get me started about talking about some of his stories. Don Elbaum taught me the art of matchmaking. Dave Bontempo, I knew I would have to endure his wrath the day after a fight if the quality of fights that were being presented in Atlantic City were not top quality. Russell Phelps, who is still very active as a matchmaker, and a man who I've always considered to be one of the top matchmakers in the world, if not the top. Frank Gell, a great man who Frank and I became very close. Frank put on boxing matches here in Atlantic City that surpassed all others. And remember that office you had, Frank, up on the 13th floor in Resorts. And I would go by there and talk with Frank and Rose Patterson. Ken Condon, who he became our Donald Trump after Donald Trump kind of left, because Donald Trump really made boxing in Atlantic City what it became. And of course, Huawei is gone, but I was either the referee in one of the high-profile major fights in Atlantic City, or I presided over the fight as the commissioner for the last 39 years. I was the referee when Muhammad Huawei and Michael Spinks fought at the convention center. And yes, Michael, that was a knockdown. Okay. I was the commissioner in the battle of the two Michaels, Michael Spinks and Mike Tyson. So I have really been blessed in the sport of boxing. I have a great passion for the sport. My wife, she says that I know nothing else. So I can't argue with her. But this is such a great tribute, and for it, I am forever grateful. In 2010, I was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. That's Cooperstown of boxing. And I thought at that time that that would be the crowning jewel of my career. But I have to go back and rethink that, because this is something that is equal to that in my heart, and I truly mean that. So, in closing, I want to thank all of the people of the state of New Jersey. And in 2007, for those of you who don't know, I had a short respite from the commission. But I also want to thank our present governor, Chris Christie, who brought me back, because he knew of my passion and he thought I was good for the sport. So for that, I'm grateful to him. So to all of you gentlemen, and to all of you, thank you very much for making the sport of boxing what it is and what it has been for so many years here in the state of New Jersey. And you have been my rock. And you have always been those who I have felt myself to be accountable to. And I will continue to do that. So thank all of you for supporting this great institution. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you.
I only got two more. I think Larry said it all about this next inductee. He was a deputy commissioner under a guy by the name of Jersey Joe Walcott for 6 years. In 1983, he became the acting commissioner when Walcott stepped down. From 1980 to 1982, he was the second vice president of the BWA. He also became the founder and president of the International Boxing Federation, better known as the IBF, and Larry Hazzard will say it. He said it up here just before. It wasn't because of this guy, there would be no Larry Hazzard. For our next honoree being inducted into the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, Mr. Bob Lee. Accepting the award from the IBF, Lindsay Page. Lindsay Tucker, I'm sorry. Thanks.
Well, Bob couldn't make it tonight, and he asked me to accept the award on his behalf. I just want to thank everybody associated with the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, all of the inductees, and all of you who attended. Bob is really elated about receiving this award. Sorry he couldn't come, but he wanted me to thank everybody on his behalf.
Guess who's next? This individual started his boxing career in 1972 with the help of another Don sitting over there by the name of Don Elbaum. They had a charity event for a hospital, and they had Muhammad Ali there. And of course, 2 years later, he was a promoter in the Rumble in the Jungle with George Foreman and Muhammad Ali. A year later, it was the Thriller in Manila with Muhammad Ali and Smoking Joe Frazier. He's made more millionaires out of boxers than anyone else in boxing history. He has been called a lot of names, including the world's greatest promoter. And if you don't believe it, you can ask him, and you can also go back into a date of December 13th, 2003, when he promoted a bout here in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Get this, 8 world title fights. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, and now he's being inducted into the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, the one and only Don King. Only in America. I don't think you get that over his hair. Look at that. Okay, for Don King's short speech.
Gotta be short.
Don King.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you to each and every one of you for enduring a long thing here with these great guys. I'm honored to be part of this with all of these honorees here. And I was thinking with Ken Conlon, he's talking about Arthur Goldberg, who was a very dear friend. And the young lady that just left, she had to catch a bus, Carolyn Chavaz. Arthur and I were giving away turkeys at her place in New Jersey. And it was just a thrill. That was one of the great highlights, that, have no fear, Arthur Goldberg is here. So I'm just delighted. But let me say this. I'm a promoter of the people, by the people, and for the people. And my magic lies in my people's ties. And it is you that really makes me, you know what I mean, the people. And that's what I try to teach and let them know. Have confidence in yourself. And that self-confidence is bravery in itself, because then you believe in yourself and don't let nobody else tell you what you should have, could have, would have been. You know what I mean? Be what you want to be, and to be able to look in that mirror and love what you see rather than look at it with disdain and contempt or feeling that you have been disparaged or something. So, you know, the people here have done really wonderful. I'm very grateful to Ray McCline and the whole group of all the guys that are here that formed this thing here. Roy's like a son, you know, his big brother George was the one that gave me an opportunity to put the Rumble in the Jungle on in Zaire, you know, so with Muhammad Ali. And so Muhammad Ali, I started at the top and I just never left. You know what I mean? I have no boxing career, no promotion, none of the other undergraduates, you know. I started with Muhammad Ali, you know what I mean? So, and he taught me, and we worked together because he stood up for the people. And that's what I try to do, you know, to emulate and imitate, standing up for you, the people, and fighting. I've kicked every president from Jimmy Carter to now, you know what I mean? And so when people that I feel that will come out and work for the people, or to bring out all of the idiosyncrasies that they won't speak about, you know, and be close, you good old boy, covenants where they have, you know, behind the rug, under the rug, whatever, but don't never tell we the people what the truth is. What you have to say about Donald Trump, he is really bringing it all out. Whether like him or dislike him, forget about Trump as an individual. Think about what he's doing for you, enlightening you into what is going on in our great country called America. And that's what counts. They come out, you'll never know people have the different ideas. They bet him like, you know, 5 times harder than anyone else, but it brings the truth to the fore. So investigation, and that gives you an opportunity to find out what the real deal is on how things are going. You know what I mean? So I just want to thank each and every one of you all for coming out here, and I love all of you. And stand up and fight for your rights. It's the greatest country in the world, but you got to make it work, you know what I mean? So this is an opportunity for each and every one of us to learn, to earn, to be able to educate yourself, and to be able to have self-confidence in yourself, and go out and fight for your country, not your party. I'm a Republican. I'm not a Democrat nor a Republican. I'm for the best who's going to help America and make America strong and make America right. Only in America. God bless you all, and thank you very much.